Greetings, students. Before conducting an experiment, do you ask yourself questions like why does an egg float in salted water, or why does oil not mix together with water? For this experiment, some of our questions include, when you water a flower, where does the water go? Does a flower need roots to soak up the water? What happens when you water a white carnation with colored water? This science experiment helps you show in full color where the water goes. This is a classic natural science experiment showing what happens when you water a white carnation with colored water. See the final step of this experiment for ideas on variation of this experiment. Children can discover for themselves how useful and essential the functions of roots and stems are to plant growth. As the colored water is absorbed into the plant, they will be amazed when the petals change color. One of the important subjects before conducting this experiment is the process of photosynthesis. Flowers get their nutrients by photosynthesis. Life on Earth couldn't exist without plants and flowers. People and animals need oxygen to breathe. As plants grow in the ground, they supply the animals and people on Earth with oxygen through photosynthesis. Photosynthesis gives plants, algae, and some types of bacteria the nutrients they need to grow while at the same time providing oxygen for people. The word photosynthesis has two parts that help decode its meaning. Photo is a Greek word that means light, and synthesis is a Greek word that means putting together. By looking at the meaning of these two words, you can learn that photosynthesis describes a process that uses light to join things together. The light in this process is sunlight. The things joined together in this process include carbon dioxide, sunlight, and water, which result in the food that plants make. When sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide combine, photosynthesis can begin. Plants then make glucose, which gives the plants the nutrients it needs to grow. Plants also give off oxygen as a waste product, which people and animals need to survive. Plants do not eat food in the same way as humans, but they need some of the same nutrients. Plants need glucose or sugar, which turns into energy that plants need to grow and thrive. Some of the steps of photosynthesis include the sun shining down on Earth, which begins the first step of photosynthesis. As the sunlight hits plants and flowers, a special process begins. The energy goes into chloroplasts, which are tiny structures inside plant cells. Chloroplasts have chlorophyll in them, which is responsible for making the leaves and stems of plants green. However, what happens when plants are cut and not connected to their roots? Will the plants absorb water? In this experiment, we will show you what happens when you place flowers in colored water.
cup 3/4 full with water. Make sure that there is enough water so that all of the stems are submerged by at least a couple of inches. Next, choose which food coloring dyes you wish to use in this experiment. In this case, we will use red, blue, yellow, and green food coloring. Add food coloring into the water until it is dark. We will use 25 drops of food coloring in this experiment. Do remember that adding food coloring to a plant will not greatly alter the color of the plant. Most of the plant will be white and will show a line of color throughout the plant. Nearly any type of white flower takes color well, although the quality and intensity of the color may vary. Flowers with hollow stems take up water the fastest and can show color change in the shortest amount of time. In order for this experiment to work, we will use white carnations to make it easier to notice a change of color in the flower. Carnations work better because they drink a lot of water. Now, place one flower in each cup. Cut the bottom of the stem at a 45-degree angle immediately under water. The stem should be about 6 to 8 inches. A flat cut can prevent the flower from taking in water, which is why we must cut the stem at a 45-degree angle. Cutting the stem underwater prevents air bubbles from forming in the tubes of the stem, which would prevent water and color from coming up. Keep the flowers in a cool area for 24 hours so they can absorb as much water as possible. As you wait to see the results, make some predictions. Will the carnation change color? Why or why not? Which color will be soaked up first? Will one of the colors create a deeper colored flower? Or do the colors all absorb to the same degree? How long do you think it will take to change color? How do the flowers look after 2 hours? What about after 6, 24, and 48 hours? How did their appearance change over this time period? What does the flower's change in appearance tell you about how water moves through the stem of the plants? Check the carnations every few hours to see if anything is happening. You will notice that the food coloring makes its way up the stem and into the white flower petals, first coloring the edges and then making its way inward. Allowing the flowers to stay in the water for more than 24 hours will show a greater effect. You will notice a dark color. Like any other plant, carnations get their nutrients through the water they absorb from the dirt they are planted in. When the flowers are cut, they no longer have roots, but continue to absorb water through their stems. As water evaporates from the leaves and petals of the plant, it sticks to other water molecules and pulls that water into the space left behind. The water in the vase travels up the stem of the flower and through the xylem. The water carried up the xylem carries any food coloring with it, and the petals of the flower turn the color of the food coloring. The food coloring can't evaporate, so once the food coloring travels up the stems, there's no way of it leaving. Temperature plays an important part in this process. Most plants prefer cooler nighttime temperatures and warmer daytime temperatures. If the water temperature is too hot, it may burn. If the water temperature is too cold, it will freeze. After 24 hours, look at the results. Were your hypotheses right?
The experiment was one of trial and error. We found that using the small flowers from the trees would not allow for the colored water to dye the flower. Because of this, we decided to use flowers with longer stems, which led to successfully dyeing the flowers green, red, yellow, and blue. Another observation we found after conducting the experiment was that the intensity of the color was more noticeable at the tips of the flower petals instead of the entire petal being colored. We also found that the yellow colored dye showed a lower intensity in the flower compared to the green, red, and blue. So how does this work? Transpiration and cohesion are the two important factors that allow water to move through the plant. First, you must understand that the surface of a leaf is covered with small openings called stomata. These openings are found mainly in the lower epidermis of a leaf. The interior of the leaf is inhabited by numerous veins, which are vascular bundles. Between the lower and upper epidermis are cells called mesophyll, known as the palisade mesophyll and the spongy mesophyll. Between these mesophyll, there is an intercellular space which consists of air that is saturated with water. Here, water enters the intercellular space and diffuses through the stomata and to the air outside the leaf. Water evaporating from the leaves, buds, and petals pull water up the stem of the plant. The process of water evaporating from the leaves, buds, and petals is known as transpiration. Water that evaporates from the leaves pulls other water behind it up through the stem to fill the space left by the evaporating water. But instead of your mouth providing the suction, the movement is due to evaporating water. This can happen because water sticks to itself because it is polar, meaning it has a somewhat negative and a somewhat positive end, which attracts water molecules to each other. The process of the movement of water molecules throughout the flower stem is made possible through cohesion, which describes the connectedness of water molecules. Therefore, as a result of transpiration and cohesion, our flowers were able to change their natural color to the colors of our choice.